Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. It's JJ Shea, and today we'll be looking at the Stan Union idea. So this idea has been floating around the content creation community for a while, including into last year. And I'm gonna just be getting into this. Curtis Adis Pro. I cannot speak right now. For the idea, it didn't come from him, but that's where I got the idea from. If you want to know where it came from, just go to his channel and check out the person that I'm pretty sure he said the person who she came up with the idea in that video. But yeah, we'll be looking at a Stan Union today. So in all my videos, they will be getting an imperialist government. They will want to expand. So, yeah, just straight on that. So the first thing that these guys are gonna do, well, they're bordering only strong countries. They're bordering only Russia, China, India, and Iran. And the only heavy hitter here is probably Pakistan and Afghanistan, kind of. Mainly just Pakistan. So, since their most powerful armies are down here, they will be sailing across the ocean and invading Oman. Now, this invasion starts out pretty simple with a few different naval landings happening along the border of Oman. Eventually, they reach up here to this part, and they take it. They will snake down the top of Oman, eventually making more naval landings across this and creating a major front after connecting all the naval landings up in the top, and creating a second major front as they make a few naval landings down in the base of Oman down here. As they get further into Oman's territory, they slowly receive less and less resistance as their armies are getting more and more exhausted. And as they themselves, the Stan countries, are recruiting even more troops to throw into this war, they eventually see Oman's full, basically collapse, as we see Saudi Arabia getting in on this, as they start to, I think I colored them the wrong color. No, I did not. Alright. As they start to make their way down into the remainders of Oman, as the rest is quickly swept over in the north and in the central parts. But Saudi Arabia does get a little bit of land out of this, as they eventually get stopped as Oman surrenders over to the Stan countries. Alright, now let's look at a peace treaty. A peace treaty will look something like Oman getting pieced up by Saudi Arabia and sorry, I just had to do that. So actually, getting Oman pieced up by Saudi Arabia and the Stan countries, with Saudi Arabia getting getting these parts, and the Stan countries getting the northernmost coast of Oman, as well as some of the coast on the side. So this will be given over to Stan countries, and the rest of it will be made a puppet state of the Stan countries. And then, as I said, this stuff is just, whoops, wrong color. This stuff is just made to part of Saudi Arabia. These two don't exactly have bad relations, they just got a little bit higher tension after that. This is the Stan countries. And speaking on that note, the next country they're going to invade is the UAE. If I could actually get the right color, please. And they will be getting in on the UAE, which again, Saudi Arabia will be quick to jump on that. Accidentally colored a part of them color. So, as the Stan countries move their armies that were already stationed here across, connecting this exclave, and they start moving ever so slowly down, Saudi Arabia will also be snaking their way up and setting a pretty base example on what they want. They want to just connect to this little thing. And surprisingly, the UAE will not surrender over to Saudi Arabia, even though that's all that's left. They will surrender over to the Stan countries. So now we have a weird looking thing. So this peace treaty will look pretty weird. I do have to say so myself. With the Stan countries getting a lot of this land that Saudi Arabia wanted, but also getting a small exclave. Gotta draw this exclave decently. Getting a small exclave, because that is where the troops had. And Saudi Arabia gets the rest. So Saudi Arabia is pretty pissed off about this, as they just got basically scammed out of their money, but hey, the UAE didn't surrender to them, so technically it's kinda doesn't matter. So now they will load their troops up on ships and attack Qatar. Now, Qatar has a decently sized military for itself, but the Stan countries have more. So before Saudi Arabia can even get over there to steal that, the Stan countries fully annex it. And now the Stan countries with a large enough military decide to ally with, believe it or not, China, and go to war against Iran. So, with armies going across this little strait over here, we have a huge front with multiple naval landings happening down here in these flatter parts, as this top part is just straight mountain. We also have up here a huge offensive taking place near Tehran, which is here, as well as the Afghani and Pakistani troops moving in from their border, making a huge streamlined front, eventually connecting up with this. Now, Iran is being aided by a few countries, but we have China, who just throws manpower at people, and the Stan countries, who just got a lot of pretty valuable oil lands. And now they want more, so they're putting their entire military into this. But as they start to push a little bit further down, we see Iran get an ally. That ally being Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is pretty mad about, the exclave and not getting all that they wanted, so they join the war and start invading. They completely take over Qatar and this little exclave down here and start to move around to this, which eventually they get all of the I need to put the correct tolerance on. They eventually get all the things that they had originally wanted, and they try to sign for peace, but the Pakistan countries say no, as the Iran offensive just had a huge general success, as one of the general leads an army of around 100,000 men against Iran, and backed by the million troops that China just sent in, they start steamrolling. They eventually take Tehran and eventually start pushing down into the mountains slowly but surely and sneaking along the coast, completely cutting them off. They start slowly but surely making a ever so slight gain on the spearhead to try to make this large encirclement as Iran's troops start to flee this area. Ever so slowly they start to flee the area and retreat into these mountain range, the Caucasus Mountains, the range that those are in. Eventually this retreat starts to speed up as people are now being flown out and shot down because the Geneva Convention, am I right? Because they're flying on civilian planes. And eventually the spearhead is completed as they completely take this. And, oh no, Pakistan just got its stuff together, and is now on the border of Saudi Arabia. And are now pushing in at a rapid rate. They completely take the exclave back, and they push around their puppet state, which has been surprisingly holding its all. But eventually they take enough land to where they connect up with Qatar, their other exclave. It's technically an exclave because it's not connected, but it does share a sea border. So they eventually connect up with that, and after making a few naval landings, they eventually complete their thing. And Saudi Arabia signs for peace, which will look something like Pakistan getting, or not Pakistan, the Stan countries. Have I called the Stan countries like Pakistan this entire time? If I did, I'm sorry. It's not just Pakistan. It's mainly Pakistan, but it's also the other Stan countries. Pakistan will be getting around this much land from Saudi Arabia, and I called it Pakistan again, didn't I? I'm confused. I can't tell at this point. But the Stan countries will be getting all this land from Saudi Arabia and Iran. And with this, Pakistan will also claim some land from their puppet state as they Can I please change my tool? I just pressed F like 6 times and it didn't do anything. Yeah, well, they will be claiming this much land from their puppet state just to make it so it's not ugly. That's just for my sake. I hate this. And yeah, their puppet state will accept the ultimatum to give over this. And Pakistan will annex this bit of their puppet. Just like how at any time Russia could annex the entirety of Belarus. But yeah, China won't be getting much out of this, but they will be getting significantly higher trades and discounts from Pakistan, the Stan countries. I did it again. So the Stan countries will be taking a major hit on that. But the final war in this video today will be against Iraq and Kuwait. So they will be invading into Iraq and Kuwait. Iraq will put up a really good defense because they were seeing this coming. So they put their entire army on the border. But that does lead to someone having to get involved. Turkey and Iran. So these two will both not join on the same side, but they will both team up and start attacking Iraq, with Turkey moving in from their border in the top, and Iraq moving into Iran, which should not have joined this war, because their military is still from the war that just happened. So Iraq will move into this and get a better vantage point on the opposing team, which is the Stan countries, and they will start invading down and trying to cut this little battalion off. But a huge counteroffensive is played, and the entirety of this is kicked out, and Iran kind of just realizes their mistake and surrenders to Iraq, which also prompts the invasion by the Stan countries again. So eventually they start invading into the mountains at rapid pace, blah, blah, blah. It's a stalemate over here, and eventually they take the entirety of Iran. This is just a stalemate. Other than Kuwait, which has not been faring too well and is almost completely gone. Now it's just Iraqi troops. And Turkey has been having the time of their life attacking Iraq in the north. And eventually they do enough damage that they declare war on Syria. If I could click the right color. God. And they start invading into them. And Syria is still currently collapsing. They're in a civil war. They eventually get encircled and surrender over. And at that, the stalemate is broken, and the Stan countries invade into further Iraq, and Iraq surrenders over to them. But this does lead to a few border skirmishes between Turkey and the Stan countries, which eventually leads to war with Turkey. Which will end something like the Stan countries pushing into this, pushing up like this. That is horrible. They'll push further into Iraq, snake up the coast, make a huge spearhead for a few major cities in Syria. They'll eventually take most of the Syrian area, which they are welcomed with open arms because Syria was just kind of invaded by Turkey and are now being liberated, sort of. But they'll eventually take all of Iraq, and they'll eventually take over all of Syria. And soon enough, these little areas over here in Turkey will fall, and Turkey surrenders over. leave out this. I'm leaving out all this stuff over here. You guys can argue about that in the comments if you want. And peace is signed between all of these countries, in which the stand countries will be getting everything. They'll be getting this little part of Syria, a lot of Turkey, and everything else that is there. And that will do it for today's video. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you haven't, keep it to yourself, please. We don't want people getting angry in the comments. I mean, almost every single person watching this video is already gone, but I still like to put my stuff in the videos, my outro, because I like to have fun. But yeah, they also declared war on Pakistan, so China did join in. That was the main reason they were able to win. But yeah, China will also be getting power over the puppet state down here. They will be giving that over to China. So yeah, that'll do it for today's video. If you enjoyed, which you most likely did not, then check out my other videos on the channel, including my What If Civilization Started Over series and my other Empire series, and also my other United and Empire Came Back series. And on that note, I will see you all in the next one. JJ Ricochet out.